Welcome back to the channel. Today I'm going to continue working on the Mandalorian helmet, which I'm going to start it off by putting some welds in here, cleaning this up, and then it's going to be grinding all this smooth. So it's just grinding it smooth because we are going to eventually add a ridgeline to the helmet because it is one of the Heavy Infantry Mandalorian helmets. This is a 3D print that I got. But see, it has this little ridge line going down the middle. So that's going to cover it up a lot. It's going to run right over the top of where that weld is. So I'm going to go clean that up. I'll finish welding it and clean it up. Alright. Just to make it easier to hold and deal with right now, I am going to come in here and cut this off real quick using my angle grinder. I am going to mute for that just because it is loud and awful sounding. Use one of our smaller cutting wheels because that's a very small piece, so pretty easy to deal with. Alright, I'm going to mute for this just because it's loud and horrible. Okay, got this cleaned up. So now I'm going to come in here, Now, just like we did on this side here, where we filled that gap, we're going to do the same thing. I'm going to run a weld on that inside and a weld on this side, and then I'm just going to slowly keep welding in here till it's filled up all the way to the top, so when we grind it smooth, it's completely clean. Normally I like to attach that to the project itself, but it's kind of in a pain in the ass spot, so I'll just have to hope I get a good enough connection through it. Alright. Actually, I changed my mind. I'm going to reposition that. Okay, now bring the weld back up into here. Settings look good. All right. Got that side attached. Now, I'll hit this other side. Okay, so now that I have both those sides, it's created like a little valley. So now I'm going to weld down the middle of that valley to start filling it in and bringing it up. All right. Okay, we're getting there. I think 2 more welds might do it. And then once we grind it smooth, I'm sure I'll have to fill in just a little bit, but there'll probably be a couple spots that are a little big that I want to fill in. We are going to have that ridge line that runs across it, so those aren't a huge deal to fill in, but we'll do it just to make sure we have a strong connection there. That one got away from me a little bit, but we did fill in where we needed to. Just oof. One more. All right. Okay, so now I'll take the grinder And we'll grind these off to make it nice and smooth. I am going to mute for that grinding just because it sounds horrible through the microphone. All right, mute for this part. Alright. We got that weld on the outside ground down. You can see there's a couple spots we might want to fill in. Again, we're going to have a ridge line coming down there, so it's not really all that important. I might wait on that until I reinforce the inside here. I want to come back through and go back over that weld a bit, make it a little bit bigger. So if we are grinding on here, and so it gives just a little more meat right down the middle. And then these little tabs that we put in here to back to fill the hole, I think I'm going to try to grind these out, pop them off, because they're really only held on by the middle here. So if I can cut and grind those out, then it'll give us the raw steel down here, and then I can just finish that weld out pretty nicely on the inside. So that's probably going to be a bit more grinder work. The only new grinding wheel that I'm working, somebody was asking if I'm using my new ones that I bought from Harbor Freight. The only new one that I used was yesterday, and it was one of the flap wheels, which is this one, so a brand new one. You can see it's worn down a little. And yeah, it works great because this one's a 36 grit, so really heavy duty, really abrasive, and it worked great. Right now I'm just kind of cycling through all my old crappy ones because I'm really not doing anything too important here except for buffing out welds and taking off rust and stuff like that. So you know, the more I think about it, the more I don't want to grind these these little things out, because it always ends up being a pain. Because the grinder, it looks easy, you just get in there and take it out. However, the grinding wheel is bigger than this curve, so it starts to really mess with you trying to get the angles down in there, and then you spend a lot of time. Whereas if I just come in and do a couple welds down the side, it'll make it plenty strong. So, and you won't see it. So, alright, I changed my mind. I'm going to do that, but first, I'm going to try to beat these down just a little bit more. There we go. Okay, so I don't know if you can see, but I was just beating on the tip there to really flatten that down onto the helmet. So now when I come through and weld it, it's much easier to weld if there's not a big gap there. So, alright, we'll do that next. All right, make a couple passes. It's going to end up being 3 welds, 1 short one, 2 pretty long ones. Hopefully. If it's more than that, it means I messed something up. One side's done. Get the other long one. Alright. One more across the top. Alright. Now you can see that's welded together on the inside. So I'll do the same thing on this side. So I would say that this, makes it way stronger because there's more welds, more material. But then somebody would say, "Oh no, he's just being lazy and doesn't want to do that much grinding to remove it." And they would be right. I absolutely don't want to do that much grinding. So it technically sure makes it stronger, not enough to matter. Also doing it the other way. I mean, when you're dealing with steel like this and you're welding, this thick, I want to say this is, I think this top is 10 gauge, so pretty thick. Then the stuff the metal that I have, the sheeting for the side is a little bit less than that. I want to say 12, so a little bit smaller. But when you're dealing with steel like that, once you get it, all shaped and welded out, this thing is going to be so tough and strong that it won't matter. It's going to be way tougher than what people can really throw at it, unless they're shooting me, which then it doesn't matter anyway. Okay. Now that part's welded in. So, also if you look on the outside, you can see where it welded around. So, now, there's a couple spots that don't have any internal weld that I'm going to hit. And I kind of want to go over the middle again. That's pretty good there. Yeah, it's pretty good right in the middle. I think I'll just have to do these last little curves on either side to really bring it together. And then we should have one pretty solid piece. Pretty solid helmet. Or at least dome. Bye, wife. All right. All right. Get this last weld here, and then it'll be a decent breaking point. I can explain some of the stuff going on with the helmet. Gets hot and smoky when you're trapped inside the helmet in here. Normally when you're welding something out here, it just kind of goes anywhere. When you're trying to weld the inside of a helmet, you're just stuck in here. The bottom of your mask is where all the stuff's coming up. It just sure I have cancer. Okay, so I realize I didn't show anybody my expertly taken notes and drawn diagrams that I made for this. So here's the helmet. Front profile, it has that ridge line. From the side profile, you can kind of see the ridge line there. So you can see this side's all the side, this is the front profile. So, is that gonna burn me? No, all right. So the first step with any helmet ever, it's always the easiest if you just weld the two helmet halves together. Get your dome just situated, get it together, get it ready for everything else, because everything else will play off of that. So the next thing that I want to do is, here's the general shape, and that's the general shape that is going to be there. But to make this easy on myself, because there's so much shaping to do with the cheeks and that. I think what I'm going to do is just do two big pieces for the front of the helmet and then the back of the helmet. So they do have a little intersection here in the middle. That's where his like ear gadgets are. On one side there's like a big sensor antenna deal. On the other side it's just blank. But underneath the helmet, on the different drawings that I've seen in that, there is an actual joint right there where the two halves come together. Because if you look at this helmet, in fact I have a 3D printed one that I could show you. You can see here on the front of the helmet, there's a lip here. This lip that goes all the way around. But behind here, that lip disappears. And now the side of the helmet is actually underneath the dome. Whereas over here, the front of the helmet is over the top of the dome. So where that changes from being over the top to underneath is right here in the middle. So not counting this, right here in the middle, there's going to be a line. And that line is where it starts. This one kind of curves around underneath, and this one goes over the top. So because of all this extra detail and all this crap that I got to do in here, I'm going to make this one piece that I cut out that's long enough to be down here. So it's essentially the piece is just going to come out straight up all the way around. This back piece is going to be about this length, and that's going to be one piece all the way around, but tucked underneath up here. And then they're going to meet in the middle. They'll probably be overlapping just because metal acts funny. Oh, the sensor that's normally up here on the helmet. I don't know yet. I don't think so. I didn't want to make his exact helmet. I'm not making Paz Vizsla's helmet. I'm making a Mandalorian Heavy Infantry helmet for me. So I'm going to change it up a little bit. I do have some little rails that I thought about, like accessory rails, that I could, on mine, actually drill in and mount on top here. So I could add like a flashlight or a little laser or something crazy up there. Maybe fabricate my own little thing that comes down kind of like a scouter from Dragon Ball Z, or I don't know if I quite want to go like with the Boba Fett antenna that comes down, but I'll deal with that all later. That's all after I get through the nightmare of making these, the nightmare through of making the cheeks. That'll all come later, and as inspiration hits me. But for now, I gotta mount this front plate on top of the helmet, and then this back plate underneath, and then make them meet down here in the middle along this ridge line, weld them together, and then decide if I'm gonna blend, because you can see down here there is no line. But certain ones that I've seen online, there is a line. There's a difference between Paz Vizsla's helmet that people are 3D printing, Paz Vizsla's helmet that's on the like licensed action figures. So I have one of those too, and it's different back there. It's got all kinds of crazy stuff up here, but so there's a little wiggle room to work with. But once I get this one on the front, this one on the back joined together, it'll have the look good enough to where it will absolutely start to look like this type of helmet. So now that I have my dome here, which is sized for my head once there's padding in there. I come in, clean this off so I don't have these metal spikes on either side. Normally you leave that little overhang so when you do weld, you don't just blow through the edge of your steel. It gives you a little thing. You can see how I blew through it there, which doesn't matter because I'm going to take that off. So it saves you from blowing through your good metal. You just blow through that crap, and then just grind it off. So right now I'm going to take those to the grinder. I'm going to grind those smooth, and then I'm going to look at my profile, make sure that I have a good round, that there's no like little spots. There's a couple spots here where I don't like, where there's like right in here you can see there's a little flat spot, little bulge, and I have a little plenishing thing that I made that I could put on there. You can see here too how this it's kind of an ugly curve there. Well, once I smooth that part out, then I can come in and I can make that curve much nicer. That's just hammer work on the tool that I have over there. So let me grind that off and then I'll be back. I'm going to mute for the grinding just because it sounds awful. So give me a minute. Alright, so there, I got those ground off, just rough so I don't have the big chunks sticking down. Then I had to come back on the inside and knock that off because there's this big gnarly spur blade essentially on the inside of that, and that's always fun when you try it on and slice your eyebrow open. So, alright. Now, I'm going to come in and like where there's a flat spot here, I'm going to start beating on that with the hammer to try to bring that curve just a little bit nicer. For that, since I still haven't found or made a new base for my little shaping thing here, just going to have to put it in the vise. This is just a big heavy-duty piece of pipe, and then a cap for that pipe that has a nice little round shape to it. All right. So if I want a curve here, I don't know if you'll be able to see it, but that already brought that curve out. There's a little, that's where there's that little flat spot. Now it's got a nice gentler curve to it. So I'll just keep doing that, looking around the whole thing. Whenever I see something that stands out to me that I don't like right there, I'll just beat it on this, which should start to bring the profile around. So what I was doing right there at the very end is if you have a like a dent in the helmet, if you have a dent that goes like in, you put the tip of that dent on the part of your, we'll call it an anvil for now, on that rounded anvil where you want, and then you hit in a circle around that, and that impact will force it down and will actually push that dent up and out. So there's a little one over here I mostly got, but that's why I was kind of hitting in a circle. I was just trying to bring that, force it up. I still might use my big giant Mandalorian armor's hammer that I'm building. It's almost done, not quite, I broke my Dremel tool, so I got a replacement part coming in the mail that doesn't get here until, I want to say Tuesday. So Wednesday, I think, is when I'll be able to finish this. Because it won't get here until Tuesday night. So, all right. Maybe we'll mess with this hammer later and break something. It's pretty much done. I just got to clean it up, polish it up, and all that. So there, now that I have this down, you can see now that we have a pretty crappy rim to go around. And although on half of it, we're going to have the rim up above it, on the back half, we're not. So there's two ways to fix that. You can put it onto a flat surface like a table. So if I wanted to make it even, you can see how there's a gap here. Well, maybe you can see. But there's a little gap. And then you take like a Sharpie and you brace that on the table, and then you trace a line all the way around. If it's even with the table and the table's flat, then that line that you put around it will also be flat, and then you cut along that line. That takes off a bit of material that I don't know if I want to do on this helmet, because it's already kind of getting there. Half of it you're not going to see because that faceplate goes over the dome. The other half, it's going to be underneath, so you would see any flaw like that. But I think what I'm going to do is on that backside, something that I do when I make, it's been a while, but made the Corinthian helmets. When you're putting this back piece in here, see that little shelf that you have? When you put that in, you weld it on the inside so it secures it, but then you also come here onto the back and you weld a big weld along the back so it's held in two places, but this outside one you grind down to give it a shape. I have an example right here. This is a Corinthian style helmet. Back here, you can see where it meets. There's that little line. It's welded, well, you can't see because I got padding in it, but it's welded on the inside and on the outside here, but this outside weld is ground down to look a little bit better. A little bit better. It's been a while. But anyway, so that's very similar what I'm going to do there. On these helmets, you have to do it the whole way. I'll only have to do that. The front will be fine. It's only the back that I'll have to do that with this helmet. So for now, I don't think I'm going to clean that up. I'm just going to start moving forward. So I'll just keep moving forward with this, because like I said, half of it will be covered up. The other half, when we do that big weld and then grind it out, we'll then smooth it out then and make it even and more appealing to the eye then. So right now this helmet should be front or back, it doesn't really matter. So we should really do that ridge line next. So the piece that goes all the way up over the top, down the middle. This piece. Which, right before the stream started, I was trying to find a piece of metal that I wanted to use for that. I did not find a good answer. So, see, like I have this piece, but it's not very big. I want something a little thicker, a little meatier than this thin piece here. So I will be right back. I'm going to go into the metal pile on the side here and comically clank and bang around for a minute. I know I'm not supposed to, but well, this might be the piece that we're going to use. Obviously, I'll have to cut it, just rip it down the middle or a little chunk, but that'll be a backup. All right. I have a lot of random steel. But not a whole lot of square or rectangle stock. I think that piece is going to be our best bet. All right, yeah, let's do it. All right, we're going to use this. So, first thing I need to do is figure out how much I need. This is going to go front to back. So, if you're smart, you have a little cloth tape, which is just a little tape measure that's like sewing people, blanking on the name right now, seamstresses and that. They have those a lot because they're really good for measuring fabric. And I know there it is. Tailors, there we go. They have that. I found mine. I lose it a lot. So all it is a simple tape, measuring tape, but cloth like this. So this makes it even easier. I was going to say, if you don't have one of these, you can take just any sort of like string or cord and you put it on one end and then you put it over here where you need it and then you pinch it off there and you lay it out and then measure it with a regular ruler or something like that and you're good enough. So for now, I actually have the right tool for the job. So about 17 inches. So since we're at 17, I'm going to cut it at 18 to give myself some overflow on either side, give us a comfortable amount to work with. So 18 inches. All right. Now I get to use my most favorite tool in the shop, my square. And I managed to get another metal splinter. Jesus, those little carbide bits, they do good at chopping up metal and getting into those nice hard to reach places with the Dremel tool, but good God, they just throw shards everywhere. All right. So we're going to mark this at 18 inches. So I'm going to use the big square this time. These things are great because this 90-degree angle lets you measure really well, make sure your line's good and all that. If I'm doing like something on here where I want to get 18 inches, you take it and you put this end, you kind of lay it at an angle along your piece here. So I'm pinching these together, and now I know as long as that's together, this line, no matter where I trace that, that's going to be a 90-degree angle to the edge of this. So where you got to watch that is if your piece isn't straight. If I'm like that and line it up, and let's say it came all the way out to here and did it, then it wouldn't be. But I know this is just a factory cut, just piece of steel, so it's plenty straight enough for what I need. So I'm going to mark this at 18 inches. One side, it's got this bevel cut into it. The other side has that little angle that I cut from something before. I don't even remember. I think something with a hammer. Oh yeah, it was the little neck braces on the hammer. So I'm going to cut off on this opposite end down here. First thing I'll do is we'll use soapstone. It's a little easier to see on this harder material. It's kind of like a chalk. So I'll make sure I'm at a 90 there. And then we're just going to cut this material off. Double check it from the other side. That whole measure twice thing. And yeah, we're good. So I'm going to come in, cut that off. But first, I'll measure now for my 18 inches. As long as I line that up on my mark here, this inside I can measure out because it's got marks on the inside and the outside. I can measure out to my 18 inches here. So 18 inches right there. Flip it. I could potentially now just bring it over here and mark it and get my 18, and that will probably be pretty accurate. But I like making two marks. So we're pretty good here. We're tight to our piece. 18 inches. All right, now we'll have 3 marks. And look here, if I put about there where my line's gonna be, I can look back. Is this 18 inches? It is. Back up here, my 2 marks line up. So, thing across, we're good. Now I can measure this, just line to line, 18 inches. All right, we've measured that about as many times as we can to make sure that it's 18 inches. So, that's why I love having squares like that. They take a lot of the guesswork and a lot of the question out of it. You can just get as many different measurements as you want from a couple different angles, make sure everything's good to go. So, all right, we have our 2 marks. I'm gonna cut those off with the cutting wheel on the grinder. I'm gonna mute for that because it's grinder work and that's horrible to listen to through the mic. I always like cutting on a flat plane this way rather than up at an angle. It's more natural to me. There we go. So, yeah, I'll just come in here, cut right above my line there. Whenever you're changing wheels, always unplug your grinder. It's an old just safety thing. Because if you have your hand around this wheel that just completely just grinds through steel and that thing were to turn on, it's not good for your hand. All right, but now that I am cutting through a much thicker piece of steel, I am going to use a brand new cutting wheel, just because that'll cut through that thicker steel a lot easier. I save these little used up wheels just if I got to cut through something small. Like those little tabs on there, I use just an old junk wheel. All right, I'm going to mute for this part. Alright, we got that cut off. Now, because it's too thick, I'll have to cut it down the middle, which is a much longer, much harder cut. I should have a different tool for that, but I don't. So we'll be using a grinding wheel a lot for that part. My old welding gloves that have a hole right in the finger that kept burning me these last few days, so it's now a shop rag. Okay, so now we can take some measurements, or at least eyeball it. So you can see with this dome, that's not a very thick piece there. This one piece, or this, on this helmet, see, it's only about, it's a little under ½ inch. See there, just a little under ½ inch for this piece. So our dome isn't going to be exactly the same size, although it's pretty close. It's a little smaller. But it's going to be the look of it that's real important. So yeah, we're a little under ½ inch. I think if we go ½ inch, it'll look good. If anything, it'll look a little beefier. So, and I like rounding measurements off. ½ inch sounds good. So, now, you know what? I'm going to use the square again. The reason I like using soapstone instead of like a Sharpie is when you're over there and you're grinding and you have the wheel in the way and all that, and sometimes you're in the dark, or if you have lights in front of you like this, the soapstone shows up 10 times better than Sharpie will. Sharpie lasts longer because you can just wipe soapstone off, but as long as you're not messing with it too much, you should be good. Alright, so we're going to mark this at ½ inch. ½ inch there. And give myself a couple measurements in the middle. All right, we got those. Now I can use the outside edge. Only bad thing about using soapstone is it's a big square, big rectangle. So I can't put this directly on the measurements. I have to give myself enough room to reach this big thing in there. But we're on all of our marks. Beautiful. Matched front mark, back mark, and the two in the middle. So there you go. There's our line. We have to cut this whole thing out, which is going to be fun. It's going to be a big jagged thing when we're done, but that's what I have those other wheels for. The hardest part's going to be cutting it, not cleaning it. So, all right. I think I'll probably end up cutting half of it, then readjusting and cutting the other half. If you have too much of it, like if I were to start cutting out here, because of the vibrations from that, hitting it out here, this whole thing will shake, and my vise is just on this pedestal, so it's already not super steady like if it was bolted to a table. So if you're out here, the whole thing will start vibrating, and if it starts vibrating too much and it starts to flex these wheels are not very thick. They are very thin little wheels. That's what helps them cut through so well. But because they're rigid material and they're thin like that, they're kind of delicate, and if one of these things explodes or breaks while it's spinning on that grinder, it has a extremely high likelihood just to fragment and explode. So that's the main reason why I wear this. One, I mean, it also protects your eyes, so it's good. But if one of those wheels detonates, you have no idea where it's going. That's why typically when you're cutting, you want to stand offline of it. I mean, it's a little hard when you're here, but this apron will help. Anything will help. There's videos that you can find online where some guys are like cutting, or they make it look like they just got done cutting and it's like embedded in the chair or someplace. They're shaking like, oh my God. If you didn't know that was a possibility and you haven't blown a disc up yet, then you haven't been working with metal for too long. It's not super common and you want to avoid it, but it does happen, and it's not near as terrifying as the internet makes it seem. Not if you're prepared and you know what you're doing. And for me to say that, I am definitely not a professional. Alright, muting so I can cut this. All right, remember how we started with a new wheel? Started with one. About this size. Brand new wheel. And now we're down to that size. Just of that one big cut. So you can see how they get used up pretty easily. But the good news is, as they get smaller and smaller, they get less likely to explode because there's less flex in them. So there's always that. All right. Here's our piece that I cut out. I cut it fat, so I left a lot of, a little more than I intended to, but I left a lot of stuff past the line. So I can come in and clean it up and not end up going into the piece of metal that I want. So I have a fair bit of grinding to do on that. So I'm going to be muted for that. We're going to be bringing it down now to our line. We're probably going to have to remeasure a couple times because as it heats up, the metal turns black and it'll take away your markings and all that. So, muting for now. Okay, got a lot of grinding done on that. It's not finished yet, but my mark started to go, so I figured it's a good time to remark it. And that last little bit there, I was just using an old flap wheel to kind of knock the burrs off of it and make it a little bit nicer to handle. It wouldn't have taken enough off the factory edge to really mess with that too much. So we should still be able to have a pretty good flat edge or control edge, I guess. So we will remark our 1/2 inch. Let's see where we're at. Yep, that edge is pretty spot on. We're pretty close. Oh, wow, that's real close. And we're going for just a hair under 1/2 inch, so. Well, this is where it kind of gets hard to measure is when your ruler's flopping around. So if you have another piece that's the same thickness, trying to knock that burr off. There. If you have another piece that's the same thickness, you can brace it on there. There we go. We actually got pretty close to our line. So there, as long as we make the chalk disappear, we should be good. Love this apron. All right. Okay, gonna be a lot more grinding, so we are going to mute. All right. Well, we got it pretty close. There's a couple spots. So, here's our factory edge. It's pretty straight. Here's our edge. You can see we do have a couple spots that need to be evened out. So, I will come in, knock some of these high spots off. I can see them with my naked eye, so if I can see them just right here, then they're probably too much for the helmet. But I'm going to come in, just grind those off a little bit and remark it again with my square and all that. But we are actually, I'm scheduled to end the stream in 4 minutes. So, went a little bit longer on that than I intended to. So, I'm going to clean up the shop right now. If anybody has any questions, I have my producer on comms. He can read them to me if you guys have anything to say. And I'm going to clean up the shop a little bit because it's Friday and the shop desperately needs it. So, I'm definitely going to go past 6:30, but I'll just be in here cleaning. So, if anybody has any questions, ask now. Or suggestions, questions about other upcoming projects, anything. It's boring while I clean. My producer is full of suggestions. I'm not going to keep this little disc. Oh, also my schedule is going to be changing a little bit. Instead of doing this where I've been just stuck on one project, we're going to split it up just a little bit. I'll still have my main project here, but then I'm going to have other projects that I'm putting in. Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays, I'll be working on either the Mandalorian helmet, finishing up the hammer, stuff like that, the bigger projects. On Tuesdays and Thursdays, I'll be working on making some of the stuff for the business that I'm going to open. So like these little artsy tanks, some garden like plant holders, some pot holders, stuff like that, display stuff, artsy stuff, less of the nerdy stuff that I really enjoy and stuff that somebody might actually buy at like a farmer's market. So it'll be posted. I'm going to update my my schedule on Twitch with it, so that'll have all the information. A little better explanation. Also, I do have a Discord if anybody wants to go over there and message me or just talk or whatever. I check it pretty much all the time, so mainly because there's nobody in there, so it's really easy to check it all the time. But if you have questions, I'll be there too. Well, I did say I was going to try to destroy something with that hammer today. I have this old cutting board that broke. Had a big old crack in it. I'm not going to, well, 2 cracks, so I'm not going to use it again. We'll use that as a backstop for something. What should I crush? Nothing too crazy. Yeah, I think I will try the cans. I collect aluminum cans because I also smelt them down into ingots. So, yeah, I'll try just crushing a couple cans. Oh. Camo knitting stole my pocket knife. So yeah, I smelt aluminum cans just down into aluminum ingots so I can sand cast later. They also just look cool. I like them. So. There we go. A&W. Sugar-free. This is absolutely going to blow this board apart. Make sure I'm over one of the supports. Alright. We'll just short stroke it at first. Jesus. I'll get that in a minute. Alright, Dr. Pepper Cherry Zero. Try to hit a little straighter on. Yep, it worked. Although, it's a lot easier to smelt if they're smaller. I think cans are going to be pretty boring. Oh, God. Yeah, when I hit them at a slight angle, they kind of go flying. God. The only reason I keep swinging this damn thing one-handed is because that's what she uses it in the show. But hers is a little different. But let's try a nice two-handed. I think I missed it. I'm putting some serious dents in this board, though. Not sure what that one did, but nothing good. Alright, that's all I really have. I don't have a whole lot else I'm willing to crush. Oh, hammer's held together. Yeah, I don't really have anything else. I think I want to, when I do finally finish it, I'm going to go and get a bicycle helmet from like Goodwill or something and put a watermelon in it and just crack the hell out of it with this then. Pretend it's a stormtrooper helmet. Alright, I gotta get back to cleaning. Alright, after I sweep up a bit, gonna sweep up real quick, and then I'll be ending the stream shortly. You can watch me sweep a little bit. More riveting content. Depending on how this helmet goes, will determine if next I work on another Mandalorian helmet in a different style, like either Boba Fett's or Din Djarin or Mando's, or I work on armor. If I do the Mando armor, I'll do the heavy, just so I can finish my set. Maybe I'll armor out here one day just in full armor. Oh yeah, and I was rewatching the series, doing research, and this hammer, the one that you see her fight with, so far I'm up to the point where he's already killed the Mandalorian and all this. Spoilers if you haven't seen the show. But when he forgoes his signet and that, so I'm already past that part where she's made him a few pieces of armor. She already made his chest piece. She never uses this for armoring. It's just shown up on a display with the tongs underneath it, and that's it. Every time she's armoring, she's using a smaller hammer similar to this. It doesn't have the peening end, but just a smaller, actually makes sense that you would use hammer. Not a big giant one. Granted, hers isn't that big, but still, same principle. Use a smaller hammer like this, like I was using earlier. So, since this is kind of a crap one, I normally use this one. I think I'm going to cut the handle off of this one and do something similar like this with it, but be a much more manageable, much more usable for armoring size. So, there might be another Mando hammer coming soon, but a much more usable sized one. All right. That's pretty good for now. All right. Thank you guys for showing up. Thank you for watching me work on that helmet. Be working more on it this coming week. On my schedules posted on my profile on here. So I'll see you guys then. Thank you for watching.